Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Robert's Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert. Alright, NASCAR announced the nominees for the NASCAR Hall of Fame class for 2024. They announced this about two and a half weeks ago. We have the Modern Era ballot, and then we have the Pioneer ballot, and then the Landmark Award. Dave Moody had said on XM Satellite Radio Channel 90 today on Speedway that the voting is on Wednesday. He's part of the voting group, and so along with Doug Rice of MRN as well, and of XM Satellite Radio. And so the fact that we are 2 days away from the vote, I wanted to kind of do a rundown of the nominees for the Hall of Fame and what I feel the Hall of Fame should represent. In my opinion, if you won a championship in the NASCAR Cup Series, NASCAR Xfinity Series, or NASCAR Truck Series, you should be a Hall of Famer. Hall of Fame should only be for those elite drivers who have been able to be the best of the best during their era. You can't compare different eras of this sport. We've all talked about that before in Channel 90 on social media and stuff. It's hard to compare a Lee Petty, a Richard Petty, a Dale Earnhardt, a Jimmy Johnson, a Kyle Busch. It's hard because it's different eras, different cars, different tracks, different point system, so many different things. So these Hall of Famers, as we look at the Modern Era ballot, I think they would pick 2 from the Modern Era ballot, 1 from the Pioneer ballot, and then 1 from the Landmark Award. So on the Modern Era ballot, the first person listed is Neil Bonnet. Neil Bonnet ran NASCAR of 1974 through 1993. Best in points was 1985, he finished 4th. In those 20 years of NASCAR Cup Series competition, he had 362 starts, 18 wins, 83 top 5s, 156 top 10s, and 20 poles. And when I think of Neil Bonnet, I think of the 75 Valvoline car. I think of the 12 Budweiser car with Junior Johnson. I think of when he did a 21 Wood Brothers. He got hurt back in 1990. Ended up very severely injured. Ended up coming back in 1992, running one race for Richard Childress, number 31, Mom and Pops was the sponsor on it. Was going to make a comeback in 1993, signed to drive the Pink Lemonade at number 68. Ended up being killed in a practice crash at Daytona. So it's sad that somebody like that, part of the Alabama gang. He had 13 Xfinity starts with a win, 6 top 5s, 7 top 10s. With 18 wins, 19 including Xfinity, is he one of the greats in NASCAR? Yes. Was he on the NASCAR top 75? I believe he was. Is he a Hall of Famer? Next up on the list is Tim Brewer, 2-time NASCAR Cup Series Championship crew chief. Tim Brewer was in NASCAR from 1973 to 2004. 30 years, he crew chiefed 708 races, 53 wins, 188 top 5s, 308 top 10s, 55 poles. Was the two-time champion crew chief, 1978 for Cale Yarborough, 1981 for Darrell Waltrip. When I think of Tim Brewer, it's Budweiser number 11 crew chief for Darrell Waltrip. Junior Johnson, North Wilkesboro. That's what I think of Tim Brewer. Is he one of the great crew chiefs of the NASCAR history? Oh, yeah. Crew chiefs like Harry Hyde, who's also on this list, we'll talk about him next. Him, the Tim Brewers of the world, they led to the Chad Knaus, or the Ray Abraham, which led to a Chad Knaus, who's the 7-time Cup Series champion crew chief, who's on here as well. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, is he one of the great crew chiefs? Yeah, if you had a list top 20 crew chiefs of all time in NASCAR, Tim Brewer's on that list. If he's not, you got something wrong with you. We mentioned Harry Hyde. Harry Hyde was a 1970 NASCAR Cup Series Championship crew chief. He was a crew chief from 1966 through 1993, 27 years, 659 races, 56 wins total, 224 top 5s, 326 top 10s, 92 poles. Won that one championship in 1970, crew chiefing for Bobby Isaac. His most wins came with Bobby Isaac and Tim Richmond. My era of NASCAR was Tim Richmond with him. Bobby Isaac, another, the next generation would know Bobby Isaac. Everyone's seen the movie Days of Thunder. Harry Hogg is basically after Harry Hyde. Harry Hyde was the crew chief for the number 5 for Jeff Bodine, Hendrick Motorsports. We all know the story. 1984, Harry and Jeff said, let's go to Martinsville. Rick Hendrick was like, I don't have any money. We can win Martinsville. In order for us to continue racing, you have to win. They go to Martinsville, they win. We all know the history of Hendrick Motorsports at this point. But the movie Days of Thunder was the hotshot car dealer guy, Hendrick. You can put the kind of the 2 and 2 together to do that. I don't know if it was initially built that way, but it kind of did come off that way. But Harry Hyde, one of the great crew chiefs of this sport. Without Harry Hyde, you don't have Tim Brewer. You don't have a Larry McReynolds. You don't have a Ray Everham. You don't have a Chad Canales. You don't have a Randall Burnett. You don't have the greats of the sport crew chiefing. Back in the day, yes, they come up with ways to skirt the rules. They came up with ways of, I'm not going to say cheating, but they came up with ways of, okay, the rule book says this. I'm going to work over here. The initial rule book in NASCAR was a single piece of paper. The rule book now is about that thick because of crew chiefs like Harry Hyde, Tim Brewer, Chad Canales. Speaking of Chad Canales, 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion crew chief. From 2000 to 2020, 21 years as a crew chief, 708 races, 82 wins. Yes, we all know Jimmy Johnson has 83. He was suspended and Jimmy won one. 227 top 5s, 371 top 10s as a crew chief, 42 poles, 7 titles. Vice President of Competition, I believe, for Hendrick Motorsports. Again, Chad Canales learned from Ray Everham, who learned from the other greats of the sport. Next up, we have Jeff Burton. We all know Jeff Burton from NBC. He's actually a fairly good announcer. Jeff Burton, career wins of 21. He raced in NASCAR from 1993 to 2014. That includes the Xfinity Series as well. Best finish in Cup was 3rd in points in 2000. 22 years in Cup, 20 years in Xfinity. 695 Cup starts, 21 wins. 134 top 5s, 254 top 10s, 6 poles. 306 Xfinity starts, or Busch Series then. 27 wins, 153 top 5s, 253 top 10s, 11 poles. When I think of Jeff Burton, I think of the 99 Exide Batteries car. I think of the 31 Caterpillar car for RCR. I think of a driver who the 8 Revestic brakes was his first car he drove, Cup. A talented driver who could win races. Coca-Cola 600, 2 Coca-Cola 600 wins, a Southern 500 win. Is he a Hall of Famer? I don't know. I mean, you got 48 wins across NASCAR's top 2 series. No championships, though. Next up, we have Carl Edwards. He raced in NASCAR from 2004 to 2016. In 2008, he finished 2nd in points. 2014, he finished 2nd in points. The only tie in NASCAR history. And the tiebreaker is most wins. And Tony Stewart won the championship that year. To tie after 36 races on point. It was amazing. 13 years in Cup, 10 in Xfinity, 5 in Truck. In Cup Series, 445 starts, 28 wins, 124 top 5s, 220 top 10s, 22 poles. In Xfinity, 245 starts, 38 wins, 134 top 5s, 174 top 10s, 27 poles. The 2007 NASCAR Xfinity Busch Series champion. In those 5 short years in Truck, where he got started, 60 starts, 6 wins, 24 top 5s, 35 top 10s, 4 poles. He finished 4th in points in 2004. One of the greats in NASCAR, that is what? 68 wins across the top three series? And just to walk away. Which, hey, you know what? His family came first, and I understand that completely. But for somebody like Carl Edwards to just up and walk away from it and be away from the sport completely, they didn't watch it, to come back for the NASCAR 75 Greatest, which he's a member of. And I love the story that Dale Jr. tells on the download. He's sitting there with Carl Edwards for the end of the ceremony for the 75 Greatest. They introduce Kyle Busch, and people start cheering. He turns to Dale Jr. and goes, "What the hell is that?" Because when he left, Kyle was hated. Dale said he started laughing because he drives for RCR now, so people like him again. Oh, wow, okay. But, so yeah, it's like, you got people like that. It's like, what the heck over there? Alright, next up we have Larry Phillips, the first and only 5-time NASCAR Weekly Series National Champion. He ran the Weekly Series from 1989 through 1999, 7 titles, 284 starts in the NASCAR Weekly Racing Series, 210 wins. So let me say those numbers again. 284 starts, 210 wins, 257 top 5s, 268 top 10s. 268 top 10s and 284 starts. No, that is not misreading. That is the actual stats that he had in that 10-year period. That's why he's a 7-time champion, or 5-time champion. He won a total of 7 titles. In the ASA National Series, he had 15 starts, 1 win, 5 top 5s, 8 top 10s, and 20 USAC late model starts, 20 races, 2 wins, 12 top 5s, 17 top 10s. That is why he is one of NASCAR's greatest 75 drivers. Are those Hall of Fame numbers? I would say they are, but there's a couple other guys on here that put some numbers up too. Next up we have Ricky Rudd. Ricky Rudd won 23 races in his 33-year NASCAR career, 1975 through 2007. His best points year was second in 1991. 906 starts. The Iron Man of NASCAR. I think it was like 780 some starts consecutively. I think Jeff Gordon beat that if I remember correctly. 23 wins in that time, 194 top 5s, 374 top 10s, 29 poles, 3 Xfinity starts, 1 win, 1 top 5, 1 top 10. When I think the name Ricky Rudd, I think of the number 5 tied for Rick Hendrick. I think of the number 10 tied for Ricky Rudd Motorsports, RPM, or Rudd Performance Motorsports, RPM for short. He ended up selling his team and was an owner driver, or was a driver for the the 28, I believe it was. I want to say he drove the 88 and the 28 for Doug Yates, but I'm gonna double check that real quick here. I know he drove the 28, and I know he drove the 26 for King Racing under the Quaker State number 26. So yeah, he drove for himself in the 8 and 70s. Judy Donlevy, Dygard, he drove for them in 81. Then drove for RCR the 2 years prior to Dale Sr. joining RCR. It was actually Ricky Rudd in the number 3 Wrangler. He drove for Bud Moore in the 15. I remember that. The 2 years at King Racing, the 26. Hendrick, his own. Then Yates, 28. Okay. He drove just the 28 for Yates. Oh, he drove the 88 in 2007. So I knew he drove both of them. And the Wood brothers in between. Ricky Rudd was one of the greats. 23 wins. One of NASCAR's greatest 75 drivers. Is he a Hall of Famer? I don't know. And then we have, who we all know is one of the greatest drivers in NASCAR history. The one, the only, 7-time Jimmy Johnson, 5 consecutive championships. He won from 2001 through 2020, 7 championships. He won those in 10 years. 21 years in Cup total, 689 starts, 83 wins, 232 top 5s, 374 top 10s, 36 poles. He had 93 starts in Xfinity, 1 win. 9 top 5s, 24 top 10s. He drove an Xfinity, everybody's like, yeah, this guy's okay. He was an off-road guy. He came from the off-road score off-road racing with Walker Evans. Came to NASCAR, the 92 Herzog car in an Xfinity. Got the Cup ride with Chad Knaus and for Rick Hendrick. Jeff Gordon was part owner of the team at the time. They go on, again, to be one of the greatest champions in the history of the sport. So of the modern era bout, Neil Bonnet, Tim Brewer, Jeff Burton, Carl Edwards, Harry Gant, Harry Hyde, Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus, Larry Phillips, Ricky Rudd. 2 of those will get into the Hall of Fame. If I had a Hall of Fame vote, if the idea is to make the Hall of Fame special, to make the Hall of Fame only the best of the best. Not everyone's a Hall of Famer. You might be a great driver, you might be a great crew chief, but only certain people are to the Hall of Fame level. It's got to be Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus. If you got the mindset of, okay, if it wasn't for a Harry Hyde or a Tim Brewer, Chad Knaus wouldn't have the ingenuity that he had. Then you go with the order, Harry Hyde. In my opinion, if I had the vote, and this has actually changed. I actually thought that at one time. I'm like, you know what? You need the Hall of Fame to be exclusive. Not everyone's a Hall of Famer in the other sports. So why NASCAR? So if you're going to make it exclusive, modern era ballot, 2 picks. Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus. 7-time champions in each crew chief driver. 2 of the greatest of their era. There will never be a crew chief like Chad Knaus. There needs to be another driver like Jimmy Johnson. You have to go with those 2. Bing, bam, boom. Those are the 2. The Pioneer ballot. There are 5 drivers, or 4, actually 3 drivers and 2 car owners that are available on the Pioneer ballot. To be on the Pioneer ballot, you had to be on the other ballot and fall off. So first we have Donnie Allison, 10-time NASCAR Cup Series winner, 1967 Cup Series Rookie of the Year, part of the Alabama gang. We know the famous Donnie and Cale, 1979 Daytona 500. They take each other out. We all remember my Joy's call on that. Is Donnie Allison a Hall of Famer? I don't think so, to be honest with you. Next up, we have Sam Ard, NASCAR Xfinity Series pioneer and 2-time champion. He was the first 2-time champion in the Xfinity Series. He won 2 of the first 3 championships. So he won 2 out of the first 3 championships. So, like I said at the beginning, in my opinion, if you're a Cup Series champion, Xfinity truck, you should be in the Hall of Fame. He should be the winner of the Pioneer bout, hands down. But we have A.J. Foyt, won 7 NASCAR Cup Series races, including the 1972 Daytona 500. I'm sorry, but A.J. Foyt should not be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. He is an IndyCar USAC god, but not a NASCAR. Yeah, he's got the Daytona 500 championship. That's awesome. 7 wins, though. Next up, we have Banjo Matthews. Banjo Matthews built chassis for NASCAR. The chassis that he built, 3 championships, over 250 wins, probably more because as chassis got sold, you don't know who ended up with them, what they ended up doing with them. But yeah, Banjo Matthews was one of the top chassis builders back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, even into the 90s. Next up, we have Ralph Moody. Ralph Moody is 2-time NASCAR Cup Series owner champion. Is a mechanic genius for Holman Moody. Holman Moody, back in the 70s and 80s, one of the top teams. It was probably Hendrick level, Childress level of NASCAR today, Gibbs level kind of team. Holman Moody, the best of the best, drove for him. Darrell Waltrip, Donnie Allison, Bobby Allison, I believe, drove for him. But yeah, so some of the great champions of our sport drove for that team. I think at the Pioneer ballot, I have to go with Sam Ard, just because of those 2 championships. And then the Landmark Award, this goes to people that have done more for the sport, not driving, but more on the business side, or more for the, PR side and everything. So the first one is Janet Guthrie, the first female to compete in a NASCAR Cup Series Super Speedway race. Alvin Hawkins, NASCAR's first flagman, established NASCAR racing at Bowman Gray Stadium with Bill France Jr. Alvin Hawkins, in that 1949, 1948, we're going to go back to the beginning of NASCAR. He was Bill Sr.'s right-hand man. He was the guy that helped form this sport that we love 75 years later. I'm sorry, but a guy like that needs to be in the Hall of Fame. Next up, we have Lisa France Kennedy. Yep, by the name, you know exactly who she is. She is the daughter of Bill France Jr., the granddaughter of Bill France Sr., the founders of NASCAR. She's a NASCAR Executive Vice Chair and one of the most influential women in sports. Then you have Dr. Joseph Mattioli, founder of Pocono Raceway. We all watched Pocono a couple weeks ago. We all thought Pocono was a really good race. Dr. Joseph Mattioli, him and his wife, founded that track, built that track, unique as it was, just to give us a show 60 years later, I think it's only the track's been there. And then Les Richter, a longtime NASCAR executive, oversaw competition, helped grow the sport on the West Coast. He's also an NFL Hall of Famer, if y'all didn't know that. From the West Coast, he actually was instrumental in getting NASCAR to Riverside, to Phoenix, to that era over there that we look at today going, oh my God, Sonoma, Phoenix, Coliseum, Auto Club Speedway. All that was Portland. All that was because of Les Richter getting us to Riverside and realizing there's a part of this country NASCAR wasn't servicing because NASCAR's on the other side of the other coast, that is hungry for big time stock car racing. Yeah, this is hard. Les Richter deserves it. Dr. Joseph Mattioli deserves it. I would give it to Alvin Hawkins because he was Bill Senior's right-hand man. He was the guy that established Bowman Gray Stadium. We all know Bowman Gray Stadium. It's a place where fights happen and a race breaks out. Some of the greatest NASCAR drivers have won in there. Some of the great future stars cut their teeth there. NASCAR Satellite Radio's own Chocolate Myers, his family basically ran there forever. Chocolate's dad, Chocolate's nephew, I believe, still is a track champion there. So I would go with Alvin Hawkins. So if I had to vote in NASCAR Hall of Fame based on this ballot, I would say Chad Knaus, Jimmy Johnson, the modern day. The Pioneer ballot goes to Sam Ard. The Landmark Award goes to Alvin Hawkins. We will find out either later this week or next week who will be in the Hall of Fame in January. Dave Moody, Doug Rice will vote for it on Wednesday. Dave will have open tomorrow. Basically, we can call in the XM Satellite Radio Channel 90 Speedway from 3 to 7 Eastern Time and give your opinion on who you would vote for. I will definitely try to call in if I can. But that is the NASCAR nominees for the Hall of Fame class of 2024. As always, thanks for watching Robert Sports Show, and don't just have a great day, have a spiffy day. Robert Sports Show, your YouTube leader, sports channel content.